All right, everybody, welcome. It is October 11th, 2023. It is 4 p.m. on the East Coast, United States. This is the Web 3x3 podcast, your weekly insight into the business of blockchain. This week, we're going to be discussing blockchain's big three industries. Despite the widely varying use cases that we share here regularly, three industries are pulling away in their adoption of blockchain: finance, gaming, and media. We'll explore all of them in depth. I'm joined, as always, by my lovely co-host, Michelle Peterson-Clark.
Hi, everyone.
And Mike Neubauer.
Happy Wednesday.
All right, so
Hump day.
Before this conversation got rolling, I was chatting with both my co-hosts here about it's not just finance, gaming, and media, although I believe those to be the big three. But we'll also be discussing the security aspects that are starting to develop. Mike made a good point about marketing, and we're seeing adoption now. And, of course, currency, as in like money, always a hot topic. So I'm going to take as a story number one. AWS and Immutable are supercharging adoption of Web3 gaming. This is an article coming off of PRN Newswire, and it discusses how Immutable, which is a leading Web3 gaming company, is partnering with Amazon Web, and they are going to the goal is to speed the adoption of Web3 gaming. They're focusing on infrastructure initiatives for digital ownership of in-game items. Web3 gaming is actually one of the fastest growing subsectors of the blockchain, and there's millions and millions of people that play these Web3 games every day. So we'll start this one off. Mike, you seem to be the person most appropriately to kick us off about this one. What are your thoughts?
First thing that jumps out to me is Amazon's name is still in this picture, right? So while we have our own respective opinions, some good, some bad, some indifferent about what they bring to the table here, pretty soon they're going to realize the potential of executing their own on-chain activities. And I mean, launching their own chain. The first private chain that would go live that essentially could be utilized by the general public. Again, integration with existing hardwares and softwares that they can build into their AWS platform, not only for personal use, but also as a business solution. Gaming might be the tip of that spear. It might be a good industry to run that potential test with. I think that any effort with respect to any on-chain activity and what investments are being put in to help build that out is a good thing at this point. I think gamers have historically been at the tip of whatever spear there is for technological advancements, whether it's VR, AR, any of those types of platforms. So this is no different. If they have the backing from someone like Amazon and it does work, don't be shocked if the next chain you see launched, the next major chain with the next major coin, is Amazon related.
Interesting. Michelle, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, we've talked before, haven't we, that Amazon aren't altruistic. They don't do any of this stuff for, betterment of the societal reasons. So they're in it for what they think the future will be in this industry and how they can become a major player in it. And from a marketing perspective, obviously, looking at partnering or, getting into bed, as they say, with companies that are leaders in particular fields, and in this case it's gaming, then they are not only helping in this first instance, but as Mike has said, and we've talked about it lots of times, that they will come out with their own chain, and I wouldn't be surprised if they come out with a game or a studio that they get percentages of people who create games in it, all of that sort of stuff. I mean, I think that longer term domination of blockchain and what is on the space and what's around the space is what they've got in mind, and they're positioning themselves now.
Interesting. I have two thoughts on this. Mike, you mentioned private blockchain. Obviously, Amazon would own and control that. I'm not a fan of that, but that's probably the way it's going to go. More importantly, though, I think that Amazon has unlimited field here. They can make a lot of money off of this. If they are enabling gamers spend money, but that pits them against Microsoft, which we discussed, I think, 2 shows back, with what they want to do with Xbox is also Web3. So we're going to see Amazon and Microsoft going head to head in the Web3 gaming space specifically. Both of those firms have endless deep pockets. Both of those firms have technology strengths. What are your thoughts on them?
My pushback on that is I don't look at it as a competitive play one way or another. I look at it as a collaborative play, right? So like, again, we're talking about a system that has the potential for cross-chain integration and, you know, the ability for gamers in specific to utilize whatever services they have in one console, we'll call it Xbox, versus whatever Amazon backs. Now, while I agree with you, they would manage at least and control the front end of the blockchain. The nature of the blockchain does not give them full authority. Now, if they have serving farms set up all around the world that are executing the transactions, taking a cut of whatever block is printed onto chain, they are going to make a ton of money. There's no doubt about that. But again, all they seem to be doing right now is replacing what currently exists from an internet perspective and the AWS perspective, and just slapping a fancy blockchain logo on it if that's the case. Meaning, if they're the ones that are going to be validating the transactions, it defeats the whole purpose of being on chain. They need independent validators and people that can pick that up and compete for that validation, just like any other blockchain would. And if that's the case, they don't control it like they think they would.
But you know they want to, Amazon that is. So real fast, I think that you make a good distinction there between the front end and the back end. Amazon is working on the back end blockchain part of it. They're not really looking at the front end console, which is where Microsoft is. And I would also throw out there, just me thinking out loud right now, don't forget Nintendo, who went up against Microsoft in the console wars and lost, owns all this IP for all these gaming characters, Mario and Sonic, all that crap. So I really feel like the blockchainization of gaming still an open field. Like, I think it's great. Go ahead.
Nintendo did not lose. I would argue that until I'm blue in the face. In fact, I would argue that they are more of the innovators than anything, right? So anything that you see right now that comes out on PlayStation and Xbox, while they are the lines that are around the corner for people on Black Friday looking to get them, Nintendo has always been the ones that have innovated all that technology. And I think that's really where they stand out in comparison. The Nintendo Wii and the motion graphics and the physicality that it brought to gaming, none of that existed on PlayStation and Xbox before. Now, they might have perfected it, but the innovation and everything all started with Nintendo.
To your point,
but we haven't seen them with anything, though, have we? Like, I haven't seen any mention of Nintendo doing anything with anyone in this space at the moment. I mean, I don't know.
Blockchain,
correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
Blockchain, I have not seen anything, but they, they are still very competitive in the gaming field, right? So Nintendo Switch,
and that's not going away anytime soon.
I don't think so, and I hope not.
I will point out, to your point, Mike, Pokemon Go, that was a very innovative. I mean, that opened up that was the bulwark bellwether where everyone was like, wow, there's a new way to game. And I think that Nintendo is a forward-thinking company, but to Michelle's point, they haven't done anything yet. So I would just keep one eye on that. That's all I'm saying.
It's possible that they might have something brewing. It's also possible they don't want to have anything to do with it, right? You know, Nintendo. Well, I mean, again, you got to think, we're talking about blockchain transactions that potentially have financial implications to it, right? Now, while a 7-year-old could still play Xbox, Nintendo's primary market is focused either on older gamers who, love the Street Fighters and the Marios, or, the cartoony type games that, really involve kids. So, are they able to execute transactions in a blockchain format? Who knows? That's also something to take into consideration as part of the value prop on what they would offer their gamers.
But I also think too, at the moment, I mean, that while it's starting to change, I think now as games are coming to the blockchain, gamers have been against NFTs from the beginning. So in that case, in that situation, I think what Nintendo are doing are siding with their current customers. So they're not thinking about what their future market might be in that regard. They're sticking with the people, they're dancing with the ones that brung them, as they say.
Nobody wants to be involved with the microtransactions in game because it costs money until you can take your skin from game A to game B.
Yeah.
But again, that doesn't require an NFT. I think that I guess distinction has sort of gone by the wayside. Look, let's break everything down.
Mike. From a business perspective, it does require an NFT because it allows the two companies that are two different entities to share profits.
It does not require an NFT.
Not technologically, it doesn't.
Well, again, even behind the scenes, it does not. Look, let's take away all of the smoke and the fire and remove it to the side and just focus on the bare skeletons of what the blockchain is. It's nothing more than a sequential ledger, right? A record of transaction, right? So for every statistic, for every level you beat, for every level up you get from your character, all it does is imprint that data on a sequential, immutable blockchain order.
Right.
Now, all it takes is multiple consoles to break in and read that data and then display that data on their respective console for it to be effective. So essentially think about the evolution of what we're talking about here. So in the early video games, there was specific memory on your console. You would save your game on your console, you would take the game out and you would go to a friend's house, you'd put the game in and your statistics wouldn't be there because it wasn't on the console. Until Nintendo came out with memory cards. You stuck this big clunky thing in the back of your controller. You had a little bit of memory where you can save your stuff. Then you can bring your game and your memory card to your buddy's house and continue along the process. Same exact thing that we're talking about here, except the memory card is now replaced with an on-chain storage system.
Blockchain.
I love that you remember those days, Mike.
We've still got them. Hang
I
on.
lived
I've
them.
still got those cards somewhere.
This ties to the story number 2, which is which we're going to.
Can I say one more thing before we move on to that? Let's think about if you're inside Amazon's product development and their marketing team right now. So they are thinking maybe what's the next kind of category of product that we can get out of this? So if they can have a section where those in-game skins and the knives and the shoes and the hats and the whatever can be sold on Amazon's platform, but it's the blockchain part of it or whatever. Like, can you imagine that being a new expanded category for them?
So I'll tell you this, for a long time, I was lead content developer for a game company on Cardano called Cornucopias. And Cornucopias has a whole trading platform separate from that they made more money from for the in-game back and forth between the weapons and the vehicles, et cetera. So yeah, I'm sure Amazon doesn't have to look too far to find the model they want. They're going to be able to build something eventually. The question is whether it will be cross-chain. Are you going to be able to have multiple assets on it? I guess that's probably thinking too far ahead, but they're sniffing in the right ballpark, if you get me. Like they're going to make
all
money.
They have to do is build their own and let the third-party entities figure out how to break into their chain to cross-chain it. But again, to Michelle's point, if you're playing this game and rather than whipping out your Visa card to pay for a product, what if you play the game for 50 hours? You're exposed to all these advertisements that they sell in exchange for Amazon coins, and then you can just use those Amazon coins to buy toothpaste that's delivered at your door the next day.
Which takes us to the second piece here about finance. These are currencies in a sense. And I think this is going to be a problem down the road. This is a story from Cointelegraph. There's a platform launching to manage tokenized funds. For those who aren't familiar, if you buy a bunch of stocks, it's considered a fund. You manage this fund, and that's basically how people make money in the money world. A cross-chain operating system will soon allow anyone to launch a managed tokenized fund. It's basically your own personalized financial product. Velvet Capital will be democratizing asset management by enabling on-chain DeFi portfolios. Being on-chain reduces counterparty risk, et cetera, et cetera. Velvet is a yield farming organization that's been around a while. This is interesting because when you start becoming, when it becomes money, I think the government's going to get involved in this. I guess, Michelle, we'll start with you just because it's there's a lot going on in the UK these days around this.
Yeah, every day this week there's been a new story about regulation, and yesterday's story, I'll put the article up later, was about MPs in Parliament not happy about football teams having their own tokens that people bought for 30 pounds or something, and they were going to get future benefits, but apparently a lot of the benefits haven't materialized, and so they're wanting to regulate against them being able to do that. I think Tottenham Hotspur and Man City are the first two, but they're not the only ones. FC Barcelona have a token, and they have an arrangement with people like that too. So I think that we mention it almost every week, I think, where we talk about that everyone's they're all jockling for where is the dust going to land, who's going to be who's going to be the ones that are in the box seat to be able to take advantage of it, who's going to be disadvantaged. And every week there seems to, those positions seem to change all the time.
Do we think these, though, are really concerned about the fans?
Oh, not in that regard. I'm talking about the winners and the losers in the regulation states.
Oh, I see. Right.
Yeah. So, I think that there is a lot of private chatting going on amongst regulators and firms and companies who are wanting their point of view and their ideas, which are obviously more favorable to how their company is structured and runs. I think there's a lot of those conversations going on right now, and it's a real mixed bag because, like this story, there's a few other stories we'll talk about later. There's a lot of stuff going on and no one's actually making any final decisions about anything right now.
Just to set the table, Mike, I'm going to get your opinion, but I want to just share this because it relates to what you were saying, Michelle. Crypto investment products have seen the largest inflows since July. So digital asset investment products are attracting a huge amount of money, number one. And also the UK regulators this week, over 140 crypto exchanges. So they basically, the UK regulator, which is the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority, added several crypto exchanges to its warning list of non-authorized firms. So that basically means places like KuCoin and like major exchanges that are fairly respected are suddenly on the bad boy list in the UK regulatory eyes.
Binance have cut what they're allowed. They're showing on their app here by half in terms of the products and the various things.
Just for example, PayPal has halted crypto transactions in the UK because of this.
Yeah.
So my point is, there's money rushing into the space, and the regulators are starting to crack down on it now. I don't think this is about the fans at all. Mike, I know we've talked about this. What do you think about this whole thing?
Well, first things first, I think that there is no black and white, one box or the other that regulators can define. And I think that's what's driving it nuts. And that's why they can't come up with a defined definition of what to regulate and what to call it. This needs to ultimately be created as a new category. Now, I think the exchange, like we mentioned this many moons ago, but like the exchanges are the place where the regulation is going to occur, not at Manchester City's token, right? That's just, it's not going to happen there. It's going to happen at the point of conversion when a user can exchange it for somehow liquid fiat that is exchangeable as a good or service for something else, right? That's called a realized gain. Now, the unique capacity of crypto is that could also be used as a currency as well in exchange for goods and services. So this is where regulators are losing their mind. They can't figure out where are they going to get their hand in the cookie jar. Is it the front end? Is it the middle? Is it the back end? And
there's so many spots currently wide open.
But I have a question with respect to this. And again, like my investment, knowledge and experience is not nearly as sophisticated as Wall Street as you. But in this particular scenario, would I be able to create a fund and have people buy into that fund with me? Or is that a fund that's specific for me?
Okay, so the answer is there's a term called an accredited investor. This has got the SEC in the United States. And if you're an accredited investor, they deem you are wealthy enough and wise enough with your money to be able to make such an investment. So the answer is yes. If it's an accredited investor, you're basically a millionaire, and I can do whatever I want to do.
And in Australia, that's called a sophisticated investor.
There you go. And if you are not a sophisticated investor, or you don't have enough money to withstand a risk like that, you're an unaccredited investor, then you're not allowed. What they usually do, Mike, is that if you have a securities fund, and that's the key right there, they will limit the number of unaccredited investors allowed, and you can get any amount of accredited.
So if I were to create a portfolio, for example, on Charles Schwab and buy a series of different stocks, and I can't share that portfolio with somebody else to buy into that same type of portfolio?
Not if you're getting money from managing it.
Okay, see, that's not what I said. Right. So in this particular scenario, what if you can follow somebody who is well equipped in crypto and just basically follow and piggyback off of what their investments are, but everything remains separate from the realized gain side of it?
So when I say I'm buying Dogecoin today, and then you go, oh, Michelle's buying Dogecoin, I'll go buy some too. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
That happens right now on CNBC every day.
Warren Buffett all the time.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. So like, in that particular scenario, there's nothing to regulate. This happens currently.
Wall Street bets.
However,
all I have to say.
if Warren Buffett says, I'm going to take a position in Coca-Cola, and every Tom, Dick, and Harry goes and buys Coca-Cola,
Oh, yeah.
that's fine. If Warren Buffett says, give me your money, and I'm going to buy Coca-Cola with it.
That's not what I'm referring to, because now he's acting as a financial planner, financial advisor, right? And he has risks associated with that he's responsible for. I totally understand the regulatory need for that, right? But what happens if Warren Buffett says, hey, I'm going to go buy Coca-Cola, everybody goes to buy Coca-Cola, and he doesn't?
So what these guys are saying, Mike, is the on-chain creation of these tokenized funds. I make myself a crypto fund, if you will. You can buy into my fund. I'm the
where
manager.
do you get money from that?
Well, I have more buying power by having Mike's money in my fund.
But my point is that the way that crypto works, right? I mean, a little different from stocks. If you're going to trust your money into Warren Buffett, you're going to trust him to buy and sell at the specific time frame. If you're putting your money in my pocket for me to invest into a fund so that we can all share, that's the exact same concept. But if I have a fund that says, hey, I own 15,000 Bitcoin and I own 10,000 Ethereum, and you can come in and you can piggyback into that fund as well, you're just putting your money into that same concept where you're actually doing the transaction, not me. So I don't get any benefit from that other than the fact that the fund has more recognition and therefore can drive the price of the coin up.
So is that a DAO?
Kind of.
Here's the rub, Mike. Before the fund is considered a fund, it has to go through a bunch of regulatory hoops that the government says, yes, you are now allowed to bring in external money. In the case
but
of
again, that money is not going to me. That money is going into the actual purchase of the token from your
end. But the way the government looks at it, though, is you're the one in charge of the money.
I'm not. That's the whole point of blockchain, right? So let's take.
But in that scenario, if I give my money to you to invest in whatever crypto coins or whatever, that means you're actually making the decisions about
but you're not giving the money to me. That's my point, right? So if I use Charles Schwab to invest myself and I say, I don't want to use somebody like Warren Buffett to manage my money. I want to determine what price and when I execute the transactions. Theoretically, I'm making all those decisions. I'm pulling the money from my fiat account into an investment account that is managed and housed by Charles Schwab, right? Charles Schwab is actually acting as a digital version of my financial advisor, but I'm handling everything myself. Who's responsible for everything there? I am, right? Are they considered a regulatory piece that has to fit into these regulations? Are they bound by the regulations on that?
The question is, if they're a security, then yes.
I think they are.
If they're not, then they're not. We're back to, again, the same thing. What is the definition of what is crypto?
It's not just crypto, though. I'm saying, these things exist now. I can go right now and I can start in my own investment account, right? I don't have to rely on anybody that has any of these accreditations, right? I can go and I can buy stock in Apple if I wanted to. I can make that decision. I can execute it. I can use my money to do so. Who is responsible for the regulatory initiatives when that trigger gets pulled? Is it me, or is it whatever platform I decide to use?
Let me see if I understand the question. If you're saying that if who controls it? Who makes the decision?
I do.
That's it then.
So that's irrelevant. That's my whole point here. So if I set up a fund and I'm like, hey guys, I have these 5 or 6 coins that I'm interested in buying today, come in on this fund. You come in and you put that money into that pool that buys those same tokens. I don't touch it. It's just basic.
Am I qualified to come into your fund?
Again, what's the qualification requirements?
The government, which is a whole nother conversation, decides if I have enough money to weather the risk.
Or enough smarts.
Right.
Okay, so let's say that we don't call it a fund and we call it a chat room. A chat room with statistics of what
I'm going to go down that same road with you. Let's call
it FTX.
Let's talk the distinction between crypto and digital assets, which is what Wall Street loves to call this stuff. Is Gary Vaynerchuk's NFT that allows me to get a free pair of sneakers, is that a digital asset? Yes. Is it a security? We don't know yet. Is it crypto? No. So my point is, there is money transaction happening that the government doesn't get a tax bit of.
Well, it wouldn't get a tax bit of the stocks either until they're realized.
Right.
Until you cash those out, there, that's my point here. So there's not one box or the other. It's got to be a new set of regulations and categories that are delineated here.
Yes.
But
then
here's the thing. So where does that all occur? It has to occur at the exchange level, because this is where you actually substitute the fiat cash, which is what the government controls, into this other form of whatever we haven't defined yet, whether it's a security or a currency or a crypto or whatever, or a token or whatever.
This is my conspiracy tinfoil hat now, but do you know, in my opinion, why the regulators have done nothing? Why no regulator in any country where this is developing has made rules on this? Do you know why?
Tell me.
Because whoever regulates it loses it, and it will all go to Dubai, your washing machines, or to China, or to wherever it's welcomed. And they know that, so they won't make a rule. But my point is, this ends up playing out by whoever doesn't make the rules gets the business.
Whomever sets the rules paves the way for loopholes in those rules.
Oh, but only within that country. The problem is political boundaries. Like if I set the rules and it's only applicable in the United States, Michelle's squeaky clean. And
this, I think, is their biggest problem.
Right. So
because
that's why
again, how many people buy and sell Forex for a living?
Yeah,
a lot.
Sure.
Right. It's a huge investment opportunity if you know what you're doing. And if you have the ability to stay up 23 and a half hours a night and play the market the way you need to, there's so many other factors that go into it, geopolitical and financial, global, and all these different, interest rates, whoever's elected in whatever respective government. But the ability to play the game of crypto as a currency, as an investment opportunity, just talking tokens now, and utilizing that in the same Forex concept, there's no boundaries on that.
I agree, but there's also no rules because there's no boundaries right now.
This again is where the exchange comes into play. Where does the exchange occur? Where that digital asset, that crypto, whatever we're calling that, where does that become now a realized game? In what country, bound by what laws?
Like countries, exchanges are in competition. So if the London Stock Exchange makes these draconian rules, it goes to the New York until the New York makes those draconian rules, and then it goes over to, Cyprus. But
we're not talking about these marketable or marketplace exchanges like we would in the traditional sense. We're talking about blockchains here. So we're talking about the ability to execute a transaction and a withdrawal in specific areas. So I'll give you a great example. We're here in the US, you're in the UK. Let's say we do this, this global concept of crypto trading, right? We treat it as this Forex currency that could be monetized anywhere in the world. If the US dollar goes down, compared to, for example, the pound or the euro, okay, whatever transactions I execute, whether it's buying in the US at the lower dollar value, I can withdraw in the EU or in London and receive higher value for my investment. Now, if the tax implications are more favorable in the US than they are in the UK, I might second guess that because that's where the medium of exchange occurs. However, there's going to be places like Abu Dhabi or Hong Kong where the exchange or the extraction of that token back into some sort of a liquefied fiat in whatever currency is going to be diminished. And that is where the major businesses are going to be attracted to.
I agree with you. The bridge into fiat is the key to this whole thing. And actually, on that note, story out of Cointelegraph, Chinese government-owned newspaper to launch NFT platform. China Daily, an English language newspaper owned by the Chinese Communist Party, is building an NFT platform. Mike, I thought this was funny. The contractors have until October 17th to submit their application. You should get on that.
6 days?
Yeah. By the way, they have to deliver the completed platform within 3 months of the application. No pressure there, though. The aim of this is to improve, quote, the spread of the influence of the Chinese civilization, end quote.
What the hell does that mean?
China's focusing on, if I read a little bit between the lines in this article, China is focusing on the metaverse AR VR aspect of how China is perceived as a culture. So they, just as a quick background, China banned all cryptocurrency about a year and a half ago. So they're not a fan of crypto, but they are a fan of managing their PR in the metaverse. So this is an interesting use case for NFTs. This is essentially blockchain propaganda.
You took the words out of my mouth, but I wanted Michelle to comment first.
I Look, it's just another way of controlling the market in these things, isn't it? And we know that through lots of other things, they control what people can listen to, how they can respond, where they can respond, what information from the outside they get. So this is really just what you're going to see is, the Chinese version of Decentraland with party propaganda signs instead of McDonald's outlets,
I'm just
That's
thinking
probably
out
what.
loud. You can actually incentivize people inside these worlds with this crypto rewards. Like if I put a Chinese flag in front of my house
My crypto house,
in the
my
metaverse,
my Decentraland house.
I pay less in metaverse taxes or whatever.
Yeah.
Mike, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I question a lot of the stuff that I see coming out of areas like that, especially after they're so anti-crypto to begin with. This might be just another strategy on utilizing the I guess the buzzwords in order to utilize additional tools of propaganda and control, where it might not necessarily be a fully integrated blockchain that is immutable and that they don't own or have control over. They would very much have control over this and make sure that whoever's executing whatever transactions on it, either get rewarded or punished for whatever actions they take. Again, look, if we break it down to its fundamental purpose, it is a historical record of specific activities, right? In whatever context. It doesn't necessarily need to be financial. So if that's the case, then having that data storage platform and system, I mean, that's music to a surveillance state's ears.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Michelle, you had mentioned you wanted to dig into the security aspects a little bit. There was some news out this week around the changing.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of bad situations, and I don't avoid those stories, but I feel like that is not the point of this show. That there are rug pulls and there are security hacks that happens. However, it's starting to become more of a factor now. So, Michelle, I'll let you comment and lead this conversation on this one.
So, two stories that came out this week was Stars Arena, which is a social platform on Avalanche blockchain, was hacked this week for 2.85 million. In the scheme of things, probably not that much, but still a reasonable amount of money. But one of the things we've talked about before, Friends.tech, was also drained of 100 Ethereum this week. So about 178, I don't know, $1,000 worth of dollars. The problem I have with all of these things is that I think that in order to have the industry trusted and for people like our parents to hand over their credit cards to buy things on Amazon, or wherever it is that they do their online shopping and that these days, that type of level of security. And it's not that things don't ever happen, but I really feel that at the moment there's too many of these stories where the people that have written the smart contracts were slackers or, weren't as clever as they thought they were. They didn't get Mike to help them to make it secure. And so, they are having people look at the back end of the code. They've found ways to hack them and to take money. And so that stuff has to be sorted out in order for this to get a much broader mass adoption.
So I didn't include this as the story, but Ledger is rolling out a security key recovery service before the end of the year, which sticks in the craw of a lot of these purists who believe that there's no security being on my own responsibility.
Not your keys, not your crypto.
Right. Well, suddenly what they're doing is they're splitting the keys between 3 different companies so that no one company has it. But meanwhile, the regulators could put together the whole combination. Mike, what do you think about the security issue that's been plaguing us lately?
I mean, since this whole thing started, it's kind of been crazy to me that, the one leech that usually thrives off of these types of scenarios are insurance companies. And it's crazy to me that insurance companies have not dipped their toe into this, whether it's on the crypto side or the NFT side. But I feel like that is definitely something that would help boost security, because in order to protect the insurance and sell that as a service, you're going to have to provide some layer of protection between the consumer and the authorization of the transaction. And I think that is really where a lot of the hardware comes into play. All the tools that we keep talking about Apple implementing this or needing to apply a digital wallet on their hardware services. This is no different from somebody trying to like hack into your phone, right? Like maybe there's an additional layer 2 security that you can add in order for executing a transaction on that. But you know, the fact is that like Ledger, for example, has a great tool, right? Somebody can try to hack into my wallet right now, but unless my Ledger is plugged in and unless I put that code in, they're not going to be able to do anything with it, right? Nothing can be removed from my wallet unless I authorize it utilizing my Ledger. Now, if that information is stored somewhere other than my hard fireproof safe, you know, that I took the time to etch into some metal plate, then that's a problem. But I also feel that people can opt into that problem. And if they do, then great. They'll have Google store all their passwords, right? And, you know, it's no different from things like that. But, you know, I think when you know, we're in the trenches with this, we see and live it and we understand what's involved. But when you take yourself out of it and you realize this is all designed to enhance the user experience and therefore potentially onboard people back into the space a little bit more.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's funny. We have like our printer here is on our internet. And we're discussing with my husband the other day about, you know, photocopying. He's got bits of paper for various wallets and, you know, the 12 seed phrases and all of that stuff. And I'm like, you know, you really need to have more than one copy of each of these pieces of paper. And he's like, he doesn't trust the printer that's connected to the internet to photocopy them on the printer.
It's a green and white dot matrix printer.
It's just, it's like, so, you know, like, I mean, you've got people like him and Mike at one end, and then you've got people at the other end where this guy in the Friends Tech scenario was, it was a SIM swap thing.
Yeah,
where,
I don't want to memorize any passwords.
Yeah. So, you know, like I just think that there needs to be some more work around this stuff. And earlier on, you know, when we first started talking about this stuff in, you know, our earlier, you know, maybe episode 10s to 15 or something like that, out of almost 50 for next week, you know, there was a lot of talk at that time about making it more secure and doing more things and stepping more towards that. But now I haven't heard a lot about that recently, and because all anyone's talking about right now is what we talked about just before, regulation and rules and, you know, who's allowed to do what in which particular country. So it's kind of I think that the focus on security is less at the moment than it would have been maybe 8 or 10 months ago.
Yeah, I think that's not going to get any better. What you are seeing, though, is with this beginnings of trading of these ETFs in the crypto world and futures on crypto, you're starting to see the exertion of traditional finance and in that world, there is no seed phrases. People rely on these credit card companies and these brokerage firms. And so I think that mentality is going to seep into, unfortunately. So, Mike, I agree with everything you say. I fear we may be the anomaly eventually.
Yeah, I mean, but again, I think it's also important that there are people like us who are paying attention to what's happening now so that, you know, when certain platforms get launched, we have the ability to call bullshit on the ones that are not doing it the correct way or that have flaws in it. I mean, we've seen some of these things occur already where, you know, somebody will put out a smart contract and somebody will read the code behind that smart contract and say, wait a minute, time out. What the hell are you guys doing? You know, do you realize that this line of code right here means that you can yank my stuff whenever you want to?
Yeah. On the bright side of the coin here, I do think that we're starting to see the use of blockchain, to your point, Mike, earlier, in a lot more of the marketing aspects. Marketing itself has become a little more aware of the fact that there's a new channel in their world, that blockchain presents you a new way to help create community, drive awareness, drive loyalty. And I think that we're starting to see bigger and bigger companies coming into the blockchain marketing side of the world. So this is wholly separate from the crypto / NFT, what's going on with the regulators. just in plain old big business, I'm talking the B2Bs now, they're starting to say to themselves, wait a minute, this is actually a viable tool. What do we do? How do we do this? And there really is no place right now, aside from shows like this, there's no place where they're going as a centralized repository to learn blockchain marketing. That is not a course. That is not a degree you're going to get at university. Michelle, what are your
You
thoughts?
mean the one we had last week? They don't do a blockchain.
I forgot about that. So for those
The
who aren't,
social media influencer
for those who
course.
aren't here, you can now get a degree in social media, apparently, from four universities in the United States, and they will, in 1 year, prepare you to become a creator economy creator.
Just FYI, not at any of the Ivy League schools.
Right. But I do think that the marketing end of what we're seeing in the blockchain is not only is it fascinating, I think these companies are recognizing the value of it, right? So the finance world clearly does. They want to control blockchain. We know all about the regulatory problems. The gaming world clearly does. They're working, I mean, when Amazon and Google and Microsoft are involved, these are big companies. And the marketing / media world, they're I would say the third laggard there, but they are on the front foot in terms of what can we build? How do we create something more than just a loyalty program? Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks and Budweiser, they've all done that. But now you're starting to see, okay, not just transactional, how do we get them to buy more of our stuff, but how do we actually create a sense of ownership and people want to be there because they buy into what we stand for. I can see companies like Apple, Disney, Nike, these are companies that have strong brands are ripe for a program to allow their fans to express their fandom. I think that is what we're starting to see the stirrings of. And honestly, I think that's the ethos of this show. The concept that, Mike, I'm stealing from you here, when marketing costs can be turned into a revenue producing activity, these firms are starting to recognize that people follow companies for a reason. It's not always just to buy a product. It's that the product represents something to them. When I'm driving in my Harley Davidson motorcycle, I'm a rebel. And that lends itself to NFTs or any kind of programs. Mike,
I mean, also, there's also things like, I don't know whether you guys had this, but like at supermarkets in Australia, like Woolworths would have the Disney cartoon collectibles. And so kids would collect cards. Every $30 you spent, you got a card. And so when you went to weekly shopping, you came home, your kids wanted the cards. There was a book that went with it, and they put all the cards in. And of course, everyone you knew was trying to get you the last 3 cards because otherwise the stupid damn book wasn't full.
I told you how many Pokemon cards my kids have. It's sickening.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So it's similar to that, but it's like this. It was like it's sort of a standard thing, like there was the Disney princesses, and then there was the Monsters Inc. and the Lion King, and so there was different things. So you could imagine that it would be easy to make that type of thing with NFTs.
Oh yeah, and not only that, but the cards, quote unquote, could do things in a metaverse world. You storytelling, you can really enrapture a small child would be drawn into a brand at a younger age if you had the right type of program.
Yeah.
One of the best marketing, I guess, campaigns that I've ever witnessed in my entire life was the Monopoly game at McDonald's. Right? I mean,
which is currently on here.
So there you go. That proof of time that it has withstood. The bigger items you buy, the more playing cards you get. Obviously, everybody's on the hunt for, that boardwalk or park place. The point is that it's very easy to digitize the gamification behind that. And that easily could be a marketing strategy. Mark, I think one of the more important things that you mentioned in the introduction to this, and we mention it on almost every topic that we discuss, whether it's AI, blockchain, NFTs, or whatever, these are tools. Right. Yeah. And, you don't need a university degree to understand how a tool could be applicable for a business. Right. You just need to think outside the box. What makes you different from your competition? But what makes anything on blockchain unique compared to some of these other concepts, is not necessarily the fandom that comes with the brand. It's the community. And I think that is something that we've really differentiated with blockchain and what value it provides to a particular business. And I think more and more they're starting to realize that. Now, as the technology advances, so will the campaign structures and the use cases of how these campaigns can operate with these respective businesses. And that's where it gets exciting.
I want to stack onto that, Mike. And Michelle, you'll relate to this because in the content marketing world, it's probably the best example. Everyone and their mother is using AI as their marketing tool right now. Like, I have an AI widget, and the AI itself is supposed to win me the business. And AI, to your point, Mike, is not it's just a back-end tech. It does something, but you need to use it. And blockchain is the same case. Blockchain is, what do you do with it is what you're getting at, Mike. And I agree with you. How you creatively strategize and build something with a blockchain infrastructure, something that draws people in, creates a sense of community, loyalty. That's the real strategy piece behind this. This is not just marketing, it's business strategy. And these companies don't yet understand that you're going to have an NFT strategist. You're going to have a blockchain division that's what they do. They build stuff, and then the tech is secondary. And I think that people don't yet, we're not there yet. Like, this show understands that concept, but that's what we're headed towards. A world where the companies recognize, wait a minute, this isn't just about making money. The future money we're going to make is more valuable than the current money we could make. And in a short-term, publicly traded world of stock market companies needing quarterly reports, it's going to take a long time for that to sink in. But the firms that do it will win. I'm off my soapbox.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you.
It's a revolutionary period for marketing and business strategies. And I think that's again, one of the primary focuses that we continuously harp on here. How does this move away from, geopolitical financial conversations on Wall Street, and regulatory efforts to how can me as a small business, medium business owner, somebody who operates a marketing or business development division at, a pretty decent sized company, how could I leverage a new technology, introduce that to my customer base and turn them into a community?
Yeah, agreed. So I'll take this opportunity to mention that nothing mentioned here is ever considered investment advice. We are here as a business conversation. The purpose of this show is to shine a light on potential use cases, ways to, like Mike said, that companies and small businesses alike can use blockchain to help drive loyalty and grow their business. This is a technology available to anybody. It is not hard to deploy. Mike, you can speak reams to that, but people aren't yet getting their hands around the fact that they could be doing something else for a new revenue stream. I want to also take a moment to thank our listeners. This is Bolt Plus, YouTube, LinkedIn. We've gotten questions almost every week. We want to thank everyone for their support. Next week is our 50th episode. I feel like we're getting old here, folks. And so we'll have an announcement for you guys. Yeah. We will have a surprise announcement next week, which we'll share with the audience. And what else? I guess that's all I got for this week. Any final comments, thoughts, Michelle, Mike, before we sign off? I can tell you from my perspective, I feel like we're starting to see the emergence of bigger companies into the marketing side of blockchain, which isn't surprising, but it's nice to see. I don't like the pushback in the crypto world because I feel like there's going to be a forcible move between the regulatory. We need to regulate crypto, but then comes the NFT thing where there's other blockchain assets that are not necessarily crypto, and that concerns me. Steph, good to see you. Late as always. And then I also think that the third thing we should keep an eye on, the gaming aspect, I really feel is going to lead the way. And as there's no regulations required for gaming, not like that. So that's of interest to me. Michelle, Mike, what are you guys' final thoughts?
I guess the only thing about the gaming thing would be if people start trading, buying and selling of, the skins or the whatever, if they start auctioning them off or those sorts of things. I don't know what that might mean or what that might look like. But I think that, I agree with you. Gaming is going to be one of the big leaders. And, once all of the regulations and, everyone works out what it is a security, what isn't, who's allowed to, what exchanges are allowed to have listed, what they're not. Once all of the dust settles from that, then I think we will see some real uptake in terms of how businesses are going to develop their business strategies and marketing strategies for the future on the blockchain and what they're going to do with it. And, you know, there's going to be some really, I mean, I think there's going to be some really exciting products and things that will come out over the next 5 years around that.
I don't think gaming needs to wait on that, Michelle, because
no, gaming won't wait. But I think that gaming will take the lead, and then all the regulation stuff will have to happen, and then it gets settled, and then you'll get the big boys go, okay, now we're ready.
Yeah. Mike, what do you think?
While there's chaos every day, while Sam Bankman-Fried's little friends are, you know, testifying live on TV.
She's rolling him under the bus right now.
All day, every day, for the next however many months this trial is going to go for. While all of that stuff is going on, while, you know, there's stories every week about people losing money and things, hacks happening and whatever, while all of that stuff happens, you will get the serious end of town, the big business end of town will sit back and kind of go, not yet. Once all that's done, they'll be ready, I think. But they're definitely formulating their strategies now.
Mike, final thoughts. What do you think?
I don't think gaming needs to be defined as either Xbox or PlayStation. I think if you replace the word gaming with user experience or interaction, you know, brands could easily implement, and there's a crossover at that point, right? So we're talking about marketing strategies, media strategies, and gamification. The gamification element is nothing more than an extension of a marketing strategy, right? You're figuring out ways to engage with a specific audience, a specific community. That could be, hey, download our app and interact here to receive tokens, right? And those tokens can then be exchanged for whatever marketing purpose or strategy you have in play. That is nothing more than just an extension of the strategy in its entirety. Now, can that translate into PlayStation, Xbox, the traditional gaming consoles? Yes, of course. But, you know, what is, we talked earlier about the Nintendo and, you know, how they might not be at the top level of PlayStation and Xbox, but what is their biggest competitor? You know, the three big ones, like, you know, it's not a console, it's this. You know, you're not taking your PlayStation and your TV into the bathroom with you every morning after a cup of coffee. No, you're taking your phone and you're playing games on the phone.
Yeah.
And you're making interaction and engagement using that tool instead of something else. So that tool has more easier implications and integration from a business marketing perspective and a use case of how blockchain can work there.
So two things I'll point out. Number one, where the gaming companies have a real advantage, in my opinion, is they understand the concept of community. These games have massive communities, whether it's Minecraft or Halo, you pick it, right? Clash Royale, there's a whole community of people that are knit together because of their love for whatever game you're discussing. And the gaming companies get that concept versus most large, retail companies, for example, don't. Your smaller, like a Red Bull, for example, would. They are very driven around the adventure theme. Companies that get that their people are a certain type or have a certain image of themselves. Firms that understand that have the advantage, and the gaming companies definitely understand that. So
the ones that don't call themselves Bud Light.
Actually, to that point, that's a great example of not understanding the community.
Yeah.
And I think
now something that I read this week, which I don't remember where the article was. I didn't share it in our chat, so on Discord, so I don't have a link for it. But it was about the fact that companies like Hermes or Gucci, those sorts of fashion brands who are doing things in Decentraland and Sandbox, which are AR, VR, reality game type situations, are not doing anything yet in something like Roblox. And Roblox has 10, 20, 30 times the user base of the Decentralands and the Sandbox of this world. And so the article and the discussion around that was, when are they actually going to realize that those sorts of things like Roblox, as soon as they get to the point where they do have on-chain games in the system, or the way it's played, etc., changes, then you've got all these companies that are not actually where all the customers are right now.
I'm going to answer that.
That's an interesting thing.
Quick stat I just pulled up off Google. Thank God for the internet here. This is why that, in my opinion, they're not focusing on Roblox. Roblox, 67% of the users are under age 16. 54% of them are under age 13. These are not people that would even understand what Hermes or any of these like Gucci. They don't know what that stuff is, and nor can they afford it. So, and I think that these.
So when we used to watch Saturday morning cartoons, and Mattel used to bring out their latest Barbie or their, trucks were advertised and all of that to kids. And you'd get up and you'd go into the kitchen and you'd say to your mom, I want blah, blah, twirly ballerina Barbie for Christmas, because you just saw it on the ad during the cartoons. Don't tell me that doesn't, create a buyer's, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but, don't tell me there's not pressure for that stuff.
Famously in my family, apparently, my wife, when she was a young girl, saw a commercial on television for the $1 million Barbie dream house. And it advertised was only $100. And so she went to her mom and said, I want to get the $100 Barbie dream house, which became, to your point, Michelle, these kids watch this thing and they just go right to the parents. But then I would argue this is where blockchain can help you. You're not marketing to the kid at that point. You're marketing to the parent who has the wallet.
Yeah.
Well, you are in both cases anyway. The difference, I guess, is that the parent goes down to Toys R Us, picks up the dollhouse, and is able to buy it versus, hey, here's my credit card or here's my digital wallet. Go nuts, right? I think it's a little different. And the gaming world has really excelled from kids having access to mommy's credit card embedded in their system.
This is your point about the deli and the gym in town can do a deal together. I can get my kid the Barbie dream house because I'm using my blockchain tokens from whatever other thing that I do, and they're partnered with the Mattel people.
And cue in Amazon. Right. Amazon has the gamification that's built in, reward systems that's there. And then guess what? On your same Amazon account, those tokens exist. You can go and you can exchange them for that same Barbie dollhouse.
So are you saying we're heading towards Jeff tokens? Is that what's happening?
I mean, I don't know if that's what they'll be called, but yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know when it's going to happen, but I flagged this a long time ago. And I think that when Amazon decides that they want to put money behind this, they're going to build their own chain, they're going to build their own token, and they're going to create this entire ecosystem that navigates around their platform. And then they are not only going to be able to sell advertisements to resellers, they're going to be able to sell the use case of that token to resellers and take a cut from it. And I think there's way more money in that for them than there is for anything that they're doing now. Which
unfortunately brings me back to the finance conversation. When there's that much money transacting on Amazon in tokens through all these deals, and it's not quote unquote a currency, you can bet your butt there's going to be regulatory action.
100%. But I also feel that Amazon is in a better position to negotiate with the government than any of us are. Right. So, let them deal with it. They're the ones that are literally keeping the USPS in business right now. Right. The postal service. So, without Amazon, they're dead. They're dead in the water. So, they have leverage and negotiation power with respect to that. And again, those tokens are only worth whatever they determine them to be. There's no liquidity value to it unless they link it to any specific token or stable coin that is on par with the US dollar.
Here's the problem. We don't have this is another hour-long show, but the Amazon would have the power to print money. And that is a problem for any government.
Not necessarily, because or the product or the vendors that transact are still having to deal in US dollars.
Well, it's the airline miles all over again, and they can print airline miles.
They could print airline miles, but you can exchange airline miles for upgrades and for seats, and those seats have some sort of a value. But how does that seat get calculated, and how does that get accounted for on the back end?
It's all on the same chain, quote unquote, with the airline. It's the airline's product and the airline's features versus a blockchain situation where I can take it from Amazon and go buy it somewhere else.
And this is again what separates what we call a security and a currency and all these other things, right? I can't buy Apple stock with my Disney stock, but I can buy Ethereum token with my Bitcoin token.
Good point. I agree. We're going to leave it at that. I'm going to say
we can talk all night.
We'll be here all night. Thank you everyone for joining. Steph, it's great seeing you. Sorry we didn't have a chance to interact with you more. We are grateful for everyone who watches and listens. Again, Bolt Plus, YouTube, LinkedIn, every Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern. We want to thank everyone for joining, and we will be back next week for episode number 50. Peace.